The West has some plans for Syria, and Russia, along with Iran, are not going to like it. About Syria, for those of you who don't know, a few months ago the Assad regime, which ruled that country for decades, was overthrown. Good thing is, a rotten regime that supported a great deal of terrorism around the Middle East was taken down. The not-so-great thing is that the leaders that were responsible were also linked to earlier terrorist groups. To make matters worse, former pro-Assad military forces launched chaos all over the west of the country. Now, the new government was able to crush the insurgency, and it looks like a deal has been worked out. There's still a great deal of uncertainty with what's going to happen internally for Syria. But let's talk about the outside picture. Russia heavily relied on Syria to have a naval base and access to the Mediterranean. Iran heavily relied on Syria to manufacture a lot of weapons and as a transport nexus to Lebanon where they could replenish and refuel Hezbollah. So the fall of the Assad regime swept the rug from under both Iran and Russia, and it also gave Israel a unique opportunity to deal with an enemy. Israel has already been attacking Syria for quite some time, but during the fall of the Assad regime, those attacks were exponentiated. Since the fall of the Assad regime, Israel has been launching airstrike after airstrike to destroy every single factory that could produce any kind of weaponry. Even taking out bases, weapon stockpiles, you name it. So even if somehow Assad was able to come back into power in Syria, it would take over a decade for Syria to be able to produce whatever they needed to do the damage that they wanted to do. And along with these airstrikes, some of this Syrian land is being indirectly annexed. This is an extension of the Golan Heights, which was captured in 1967 and officially annexed in 1981. Now, officially, this land is just a demilitarized zone that is currently occupied by the IDF, and the excuse is, well, it's to protect the Druze along the border. There are large Druze communities in both countries, especially along the border. And while all this is going on, Bashar al-Assad is still being housed inside Russia, just in case some kind of rebellion can be pulled off where Assad gets to come into power again. That's going to be much harder because Israel has such a strong foothold in that country, and we cannot forget Turkey. Turkey's President Erdogan is no fan of Israel, but they also really didn't like Bashar al-Assad and the rebel elements that were growing inside Syria during the civil war. One particular group is the IS, and that is somebody almost every single country in the Middle East can agree to go after. Not only Turkey, but Iraqi national intelligence along with US-led coalition forces have been going after them successfully. The more stable and unified Syria can be without someone like Bashar al-Assad ruling, the happier Turkey will be. And while Turkey's President Erdogan is not a fan of the Kurds, the fact that the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces, which is a major military power, and the officially new government of Syria formed some kind of treaty of reintegration, that guarantees a bit more stability and less problems that Turkey will have to address in the future. This also helps the country take care of any growing or regrowing Russian influence in the Middle East, because that's something that Turkey doesn't want, especially with the president like Erdogan. Turkey wants the majority of the natural gas and oil buried in the Black Sea, but they can't do that when Russia is hogging most of it with their occupation of Ukraine. It's also why President Erdogan and President Zelensky are so chummy-chummy. Erdogan supplies Ukraine with a great deal of weaponry, especially drones, and they have even offered that if the time actually calls for it, to send troops into Ukraine. Because anything that Turkey can do to weaken Russia means more room for Turkey to assert its own power. And then we can't forget Saudi Arabia. They are a major power broker in the area too. Saudi Arabia has condemned the Assad regime for quite some time, especially during the Syrian civil war, even though they have offered for Assad to come back to the table before his regime was taken down. Remember that the Houthis are not only a thorn in the side of the entire world because of the disruption of trade on the Red Sea, but the Houthis are directly fighting against the Saudi Arabian influence in Yemen. In fact, they're kind of winning. And since Iran funded and supported both the Houthis and the Assad regime, the fact that there is such a huge void and vacuum in Syria means the Houthis don't have as much support or replenishment capacity as they did before. Israel destroying all the weapons infrastructure in Syria, and then Turkey helping unite the rest of Syria to form some kind of stability, means that it's very hard for splinter groups to form and also for Houthis to have any kind of support there. Last but not least, the United States and our current president just ordered a huge strike against the Houthi group in Sana'a. Sana'a is the capital of Yemen, which is the Houthi base of power. And our current president has also issued a threat to Iran to say, you better stop supporting these guys or we're going to start getting very angry. Now, unfortunately, in the previous administration under Biden, he didn't issue strong enough attacks against the Houthis, at least in my opinion, because they were able to still launch a massive campaign to stop a lot of world trade in the Red Sea. Now, say what you will about this current president, and I have my own issues with him. I don't think he's as concerned about making waves, and I think he is willing to deal much more lethal blows to this group, and of course to Iran if they keep enabling this. To sum all of this up, Turkey, a key NATO ally, is gaining more influence in Syria along with the rest of the Middle East. They are also helping contain Russia. Israel has destroyed a lot of Syria's means of launching any kind of threatening campaign against them, and they've taken some territory. Iran's access to two main groups used to fight against Israeli and overall Western interests have been compromised, to say the least. Saudi Arabia may be able to reclaim control of Yemen, which they've lost for well over a decade. And if the United States keeps launching these attacks against the Houthis, and compromises their ability to deter world trade, our president gets to take credit for it. The West has gained several footholds while the enemies have lost quite a few. I am the Geo Husar, and let's all hope that Syria can keep its act together. Thanks for watching.